So, you guys heard about Bitcoin?
What's that?
That's so 2019.
Dude, it's like, decentralized currency, dude. No, but
douchebag money?
dude, basically. But for real, Bitcoin is known to have been created by the name we're given is Satoshi Nakamoto is the name, who is the inventor of Bitcoin. But there is a man with that name that we know of who says he did not make it. One, there could also be, it could be a pseudonym or, someone that's anonymous and we don't know who they are or what it is. But an interesting thing I learned recently is the name Satoshi Nakamoto. The word Satoshi is usually a name for boys, meaning clear thinking, quick-witted, or wise, knowledge, intelligence.
All right.
The name Nakamoto is a Japanese surname, meaning central origin, or one who lives in the center. And then we think about Japanese. So in Japanese, the name would be Nakamoto Satoshi. Central Intelligence.
What?
The CIA
made Bitcoin?
created Bitcoin.
Okay, so in your description, I thought you said Central Boy, and maybe it lost me. I was like,
what does this mean?
And then I just went on a tangent thinking of and what is the center of a man? Isn't nucleus. And now I'm just thinking of Nacho Libre.
No, really, it's more.
So the theory is that the CIA created Bitcoin.
Well, that is one idea. One idea is that the CIA created Bitcoin, named it Satoshi Nakamoto as both a way to publicize it or make it real. The other theory is that the creator of Bitcoin used that name as a joke, or even better, that the NSA created Bitcoin and then was like, ha ha ha, joke's on you. We're going to call it Central Intelligence.
I want to say, because we're breaking some really serious important stuff here. All three of us are very happy. We have no dark thoughts.
Yes.
We don't want to do any self-harm.
I am in love with my life.
If anything happens,
So
we were right.
That being said, keep going. Sorry.
I do love that CIA is trying to real life author a Gene Wolfe novel.
I mean, basically. That being said, if we're gonna just do a little moment of did something weird happen? One, it's actually not a big deal if they made Bitcoin and we can say, oh, it's nefarious or whatever. Sure. My point in saying that is my guess is it's not creating Bitcoin for they're on the back end and they can watch what everything happens. It's probably more like if you need an easy way to pay off assets, Bitcoin is a fantastic way to do it.
Sure.
Because one, they, with all their servers, can just generate it.
Right.
Tons of it. Free of charge.
And it doesn't really mean anything.
And then it doesn't really mean anything. And then they can pay people with it and keep it usually and then people say, oh, well, it's all on the blockchain. So then you can find it. Well, it's pretty easy to hide who it came from, where it was. Also, if you've got Bitcoins with no background on a USB, you just give that to someone and bam. And Bitcoins are worth a lot of money now. So now it's even easier. So it actually makes some sense if there is some intelligence backing for it. Would the CIA name it and reveal themselves? I don't know. They've been known to be cheeky before.
Hello and welcome to the Under Towers podcast. I'm Steven.
I'm Daniel.
I'm Sam.
And we have a great episode for you. That's probably the last CIA reference this episode.
Probably.
That we'll ever make living.
We'll see you next week. But we got a great episode. We're continuing with our King Arthur discussion. Tonight we'll be talking about Morte to Arthur by Thomas Malory. But before we get to that, some news. This isn't news as of when this episode airs, but the second trailer for Nosferatu has been released. And oh boy,
it looks really great.
It has me extremely excited.
It's coming out Christmas.
Yeah,
which is kind
bizarre.
Which is kind of weird.
I mean, my birthday's 3 days after. Should we do a Under Towers?
We've-
Under Towers birthday
Absolutely.
Nosferatu visit. That
Yeah.
sounds great.
We will live tweet the whole time.
It is more horror than I would like it to look because that is not
Dude,
mine.
no,
But it looks
is so-
looks
we're-
great.
We're so on the opposite page here on that one
I
because like
know.
I loved so the only Eggers film I haven't seen yet, I haven't seen Lighthouse.
You need to see Lighthouse.
Only because it came out at a period of my life
No
here
excuses!
where I haven't watched movies.
That was that was a horror moment for you just now.
But I love The Witch.
The Witch is great.
That one's pretty
And one thing-
horror though.
But that's the thing. It's like it was billed as like horror, and
It's really more like psychological with some moments.
it's kind of in the like folk horror angle.
That stuff is more
It's-
scary
I
than
will
It
horror,
is,
though.
but it's not like
it is not like classic horror the way that's made
Like
right
slasher
now.
Yes,
horror?
I
It's more like
expected,
impending-
I expected it to be more even more jump scare, monstery kind of thing.
I think it's on a par
Or
with
psychological.
Midsommar, but then Midsommar's gore is
No, honestly,
Yeah.
give me the jump scare over The Witch. I loved it, but that movie.
it
messed
really
with
is
me.
unsettling.
That
It's
one
very
line-
unsettling.
do you
I've
That's
want-
watched
more
it
the
several.
word.
I've watched it several
Dude,
times.
that line just still messes. It sticks with me. Do you want to live deliciously?
Yeah,
I'm like,
love it.
ah!
Black Peter. Black Peter is the shit.
Yeah.
But this though looks like my exact favorite kind of horror. That extremely dark, grim, gothic horror. Like I think I've asked you guys this maybe even on the pod before, but did you guys watch Penny Dreadful?
No.
No.
Phenomenal series, and this is very similar vibes.
The
and
hand shot is.
oh my
pretty
god, the
sick.
hand reaching,
I-
the shadow
I
of the
am a
hand
fan of
reaching,
that, yeah.
and that's like old school too. That's like
That's
I mean,
some, like,
obviously this is a
Tim
remake.
Burton stuff, right?
Well, even way back before that. So this is Nosferatu, the original Nosferatu, was Dracula, the book, but they couldn't get the rights for it at the time, and so they changed the names around and a few things in the story and made this new story. One of the multitude of films in the German expressionist genre, which is what spawned a lot of what we now think of as horror. It's directly responsible for instance, like the Warner Brothers or the Universal horror films. The Warner Brothers like film noir gangster things are result of film noir, but it's very stylized, very stark, high contrast, lots of play with shadows.
Yeah.
And that Nosferatu was one of the defining movies of that genre. German expressionism is phenomenal. We'll do a series of movie watches with it and discuss those later.
Yeah.
So that the hand shot over the city is very old school Universal horror film, monster films, very German expressionist.
It felt very classic.
And it's
Cinema.
so atmospheric, and I'm so excited to see Robert Eggers play in this playground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks so much more like blockbustery for him.
It does,
all
but it
the other
also.
But the Northman did too.
In a really good way. Like the trailer did for sure for Northman. So
but he's
I mean,
doing
if
the
the trailer
old thing,
looks
but
like
then
that
also
too.
the like really earthy, real sets, which he's done in everything. It's really everything I want in a movie.
I love the trailer, but I am surprised by how this is gonna sound bad, but almost like consumer palatable, it
We'll
seems.
see.
I mean, it's
But
definitely.
I will
think
say
The Witch-
the Northman trailer felt that way too. And then
Yeah.
watching the movie, it was like, oh, this is not at all like.
yeah,
That
I have this
honestly, The
feeling-
Witch was the same way. Where I do believe The Witch was like billed like your classic horror right in time for Halloween,
Yeah.
and then a lot of people saw it and were like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
Like,
which makes me so much more excited.
He's tricking everyone. That's what it is.
Well, and they're very
Right.
they're very well made trailers, and and that's part of what makes them such great trailers is that they actually, I'm not going to say give you a false idea of what movie you're going into, but they show you things without telling you what the movie's going to finally be like. Northman is one of the best movies I have ever seen in my entire life, and Dracula is one of my favorite books of all time, and I am
Same.
so
Same.
stoked.
yeah, it's gonna be great.
I'm
to see
Bram
this.
stoked to see
I
this.
just I love Eggers because there is no subversion in him, and there is a place for subversion, but he takes myth, and these old legends and tales like seriously.
Yes.
And people think, I think we just have gotten fixated on this, like, let's get under everything. This sort of postmodern, like, what's behind that? What's that? It's like, nope. It's so refreshing to have a director and a storyteller just like, no, we're just going to take this really, really, really seriously. And I'm just going to pay attention and homage to it. And then you end up with these really evocative magical worlds.
And authentic ones too.
Yep.
Like Northman, there is not a single modern sensibility in that movie.
No.
And as such, it feels very much like the most historically accurate Viking movie that's ever been made.
Yep. Whether it is or isn't too. It's like, if there are inaccuracies, they're tapping into something. Because I'm not commenting whether there are or aren't. They're tapping into something really special there.
Yeah.
But,
And I mean, we're not even talking about like the Northman in this episode, but just the thing that makes it feel so real is the scale of the world. It's teeny. There's like 50, 60 people in this like tribe that have like this sort of kingly hierarchy. And like we're from a small town. So it's like our small town is huge compared to that.
Right.
Sure.
But that also felt larger than life. And at that time, being told generations becomes legend. And you think, oh, Vikings, there's like thousands of them. It's like, well, I mean, kind of there were tribes of like 20 people. Like it wasn't that crazy scale wise. So that to me is what made it feel like, oh, this is kind of a slot of time that I'm just being immersed in.
But to bring it back to Nosferatu, buddy saw the trailer in the theater, and they're getting to the end. Willem Dafoe says Nosferatu. The title card comes up, Nosferatu, and the dude in front of him turns around and goes, "It's Dracula."
What? Oh yeah.
It's Dracula, bro.
Dracula.
Dracula, bro. Cool Dracula movie, bro.
It looks pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Hell yeah. Sick. God. Dracula, bro. Eggers is hands down one of the most exciting directors out there right now. So I'm just.
I mean, if we could get
so
like
excited.
Gene Wolfe and Robert Eggers in a room and rewrite the Chronicles of Narnia, like
we need Gene Wolfe's ghost to haunt Robert Eggers.
Well, here's the thing. For real.
It could happen.
For real. Off the top of my head, I don't know that I can think of another director that I would be like confident in a Gene Wolfe adaptation being good.
Of something.
Except for Robert Eggers.
Yeah, right now.
A live action Gene Wolfe, it would have to be him.
Yeah,
it would. Of course, he'd probably look at it and be like, I don't get it. After
Well,
rereading it like 6 times, in terms of being able to retell it.
Yeah, just
in a cinematic way.
Yeah.
Like,
it is. Yeah,
but if I saw his name attached to it, I'd be like,
I'd be stoked.
Oh, okay,
I'd watch it. But if it's bad, that would make me really sad.
Well, sure, but
like Rings of Power. Like Rings of Power. I'm really sad about Rings of Power.
Yeah, that's all right. We'll get through it.
We'll figure it out.
All right. Before we get to our discussion of Morte d'Arthur, a word from our sponsors.
Introducing Buffet on the Helm, a new full-service restaurant, bar, and victuals buffet expanding across the nation. Smoked crab legs, passing sore roast hinds, goose neck trinkles, and rumpled down marigos. Our recipes are made. Our recipes are made fresh from scratch every day in our stables.
I'm asking Alexa
and we'll
for
give
a
you
recipe.
such a buffet on the helm. You'll be yielding and crying gramercy in no time. Loosen those belt straps, take off your armor, and rush on down to Buffet on the Helm. You'll take your fork.
This is like Golden Corral in the 1600s.
What's what was it? Luby's Cafeteria.
You'll take your fork and lance a lot right into these tasty morsels.
Wow.
As you pin another dragon song of
bad.
praise for a passing fair meal, the most beautiful that any had ever seen.
As always, code Undertowers for 10% off your first meal at Buffet on the Helm.
Buffet on the Helm.
I'm not gonna lie, dude. That sounds delicious.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward. Definitely next production meeting is at Buffet on the Helm.
Absolutely.
With that promo code too, you can lance a lot off the price.
A lot.
Yeah.
Stunning.
Absolutely.
Phenomenal. Huge thank you to our sponsors. I love our sponsors.
Yeah.
All right.
They're really good at copying captions too. Like that's a really funny way to present it.
Morte d'Arthur by Thomas Malory.
Sir Thomas Malory.
Take us away, Daniel.
Yeah, so the Morte d'Arthur was written by Sir Thomas Malory sometime before 1470. As we're told in the text, it appears most of the book was written in prison, or at least parts of it were written in prison, which is an interesting idea because it appears from what we know of him that he was maybe in and out of jail. He did have books with him that he was sourcing these stories from.
What?
So it's
Why
interesting
was he in jail?
We don't really know. So it could have been that he was engaged in evil knightly acts, stealing and pillaging and whatnot. Also could be that it was a politically fraught time in England and that he was on the wrong side of this or that political divide and was being held.
He killed someone's deer.
Killed a deer.
He
killed a deer, and
Couldn't
it was
wait a
just
year.
too much. But
A year in prison.
You're in prison.
interestingly, we don't really know who the real Thomas Malory was. There were a number of people alive with that name who would have most likely been knighted that kind of fit the bill. The most likely character who was a knight, who we also know went to prison, died probably too early from what they know to actually be the Sir Thomas Malory, unless there's some error there. So, it's kind of interesting that this super, super famous book has an author who we're like, we really don't know who this guy is, because it's long ago, but it's not so long ago where there's usually some details. But there are two manuscripts, full manuscripts that we have. The Caxton is the most popular, which was published in 1485. And it's the one that's divided into chapters the way it is. If you get it in one volume, it's going to be about 900 pages or close to 40 hours in an audiobook. But in 1934, they discovered the Winchester manuscript in Winchester College. They just found it in a room, which is also I just can't imagine being that guy. Wait, what is this?
It's like going to Goodwill and finding a lost Monet or something.
Yes, exactly, basically
for 25 cents.
Yeah. So we found that kind of changed the opinion on it. What's interesting is while the Caxton is divided into chapters, the Winchester manuscript, it has alliterative letters to break up the section. So there's a large first letter at the beginning of each section, but there's no chapters in the chapter all these books chapter 12, How Sir Arthur Gained His Goose or whatever. That's not one of them.
But I was going to say, I missed that one.
One of my favorite stories.
But yeah, so
gonna have to take a gander at that one.
Those
later.
are the two differences. But the Winchester, from what we know, was published in 1470. Interesting idea there is that the book was also maybe compiled by someone other than Malory and then edited and worked on. So it also gives some credence to it. Possible that he did live earlier and that then the book was played with.
I just did a quick search of his crimes.
Really?
Yes, and I found out a couple things. His alleged crimes include robbery and theft. He was accused of ambushing and robbing a duke's entourage.
Okay.
Cattle rustling. There was charges against him for stealing livestock. Breaking and entering. Malory was accused of breaking into several properties, including a monastery.
Interesting.
And then rape.
Wow.
In 1450. Although he was charged with raping Joan Smith, though there's ongoing debate about the accuracy of these accusations. It goes on to say that some scholars speculate that his criminal background might have influenced the themes of chivalry and knightly honor.
Well, that was one thing I was going to say is this book is really telling a lot of stories about what knights should be and how they should act and what the knightly ideal is. And it's interesting to think about the author either being someone who was either ostracized and lied about, or someone who was just potentially a relatively petty criminal writing those books. It's a really interesting idea.
I've heard too. So this
He
definitely
was also knighted, right? He was a
He
sir.
was a sir, yeah.
This falls into the that category that we've talked about before of classical romance. These kind of chivalric tales that began in the south of France in I think the 1300s. And I've heard two kind of dueling ideas that I'm sure kind of existed simultaneously about this genre of knightly tales, and one of which being that they were essentially kind of the romantasy of the day, where you had these were mostly stories for women, where you had these wives of knights and lords that was political marriages. They were not happy. They were not getting the love they needed. emotionally or physically, and so
Sure.
then they had this entire genre of story built for them of these super illicit
Sure,
romances
sure.
and
Yeah.
knights fighting and doing all this stuff for the women. And
That's
But
interesting.
what do you think
their
the
ladies.
YA section was for them, and the apothecary, if you will?
it was that, but just more explicit in a extremely inappropriate way.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be written down, so they'd probably have like some, old guy at a fire telling them these tales. I don't know.
Well,
like-
that for sure existed.
Yeah.
But then, so the other kind of competing thing I read about the reason that this chivalric knightly genre started at that time was that you had all of these knights who were real pieces of shit
Right.
running around and tearing things up and doing whatever they wanted. And
Yeah.
so the nobles essentially kind of commissioned these stories to be like, hey, look at these knights.
Yeah.
Don't you want to be like these guys instead of the raging assholes that you are right now? Like, oh, look at these knights, aspire to the round table. This is what you could be.
Right. I could see a world where there's some truth
I think
to
it's-
both.
I mean, that's like
For
the
sure.
second one makes a lot of sense, though.
Yeah.
It really does.
I think it's both.
Yeah,
I think
but
it's
I think
definitely
there's
It's
some
the
of
most
both.
beautiful form of propaganda, though.
And
sure.
Interestingly, that's
Everybody needs inspiration. That's one of the great things about
that's
stories.
maybe the thesis of Once and Future King.
Yeah.
Obviously,
We need to get knights not be shitty.
yes, but but that's basically Arthur's task. He's like, I'm going to introduce chivalry to make the world like less bad, and like how do I fix the world?
You could argue
Which-
that's the theme of the whole round table.
It is, and
really.
he was writing his stories, and we'll talk more about that later. But in the
His stories, history.
oh,
there it is.
Wow. Okay, I'm mind blown. But he was writing at the end, during and through the World War, so he was writing that same thing of like we need chivalry again. But either way, Morte is and he mentions this as a bunch, especially the French book and other sources, but he was compiling and mostly translating these stories from French into English to then write them. What's interesting too, when we talk about the Winchester and the Caxton manuscripts, they're very different. There's like the overall material is roughly the same, but like literally just the phrases and the wording of things, let alone the spellings. It's really interesting, I think, to think about because we've lived in a world where spellings are pretty uniform for quite a long time, but it just really did not used to be like.
Well, that's one of the things that gets all the conspiracy nerds going about Shakespeare and the whole like, was Shakespeare really Shakespeare? Look at all these different spellings. It's like
Right.
that's how things were written back then. You
Yeah,
kind
they
of
just did.
spelt it how you felt it.
Right.
Yeah,
as
most
you're
people were
writing.
illiterate, so
Yeah,
too.
and but again, there just was no uniform way of spelling.
And there
things.
weren't dictionaries and there weren't references, so
No.
like people would have a way of doing it. But then but also like if the way I wrote a word every time, especially by hand, was like what we just had to do, there would be like several different spellings for like conscious. Like, there would be
I mean, just your
the
name,
letters would
like,
change.
Just
over
your
time.
your name alone, Daniel. If I had to just rely on phonetics, it'd be like
Yeah.
Connect-
Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel.
And especially if you're just hearing it. Yeah, then that's
Yeah.
definitely part. But either way, he's compiling these sources.
Like whoever wrote
Um,
Poish down. Oh, Pwyll, of course.
Sorry again, Wales, for our pronunciations of your beautiful names and places in the last episode.
You guys
But
have
the,
much more lore than I do.
The main sources for Morte is the French book, which is believed or known to be the Old French Vulgate romances. He's also pulling from the Middle English alliterative Morte and the stanzaic Morte Arthur. Those both focus more on his death and the alliterative is the affair, where the stanzaic is literally Arthur's death. Also, John Harding's with a Y, English Chronicle. And he's also pulling from Shetron de Troyes romances, which is the story of Eric and Enid, Lancelot, the Knight of the Cart, which is a story that's in the book, Percival's Grail Quest, and Yvain of the Lion, which is also the story we get in the Mabinogion of Owain. Obviously, from there, he's also. It doesn't actually sound like Mabinogion maybe or those stories were a direct reference for him. There's obviously cross stuff though.
Obviously, there's translations and everything
Absolutely.
going on. However, reading those Arthurian stories in the Mabinogion feels very similar to Morte.
Oh,
it's
yeah,
the
for
same.
sure.
It's,
It's
at
the
the
same
very
style of
least,
storytelling.
Yes.
It is different. But his references, he's got some English, but most of his are French. And with his name being Malory, which also the way he spells it is like Malleorre, which is like Malory. It's like how you
Chill, dude.
I know it's just which again it's like whatever they spell it.
Okay, it's Mallorr. Why? Thomas Malory.
But before we like dig into the book a little more, if you are at all curious about the way the original manuscripts looked, you can go to, and I wrote it down.
Google.
It's Morte project. Where did I write this down?
We'll put it in the show notes.
We'll put it in the show notes. But there's a great website, Morte Project, I do believe, or Malory Project. And from there, you can look at both the original manuscripts of both the Caxton and the Winchester. I looked through quite a few of them when I was working on some of this stuff. They're really cool. They're very hard. They're like almost impossible to read, but they're very cool. And it's interesting to see how different and just how those books looked. So from there, Morte is the original full life telling of Arthur, where the rest of it was Arthur's death, the random different romances and stories. This was the first that we know of someone trying to tell the entire tale from front to back. As such, we get 21 books. I don't know how they were bound. With this being so meaty, it would make sense if they were a lot of different books.
I would think so. I would think they would have to be.
Whether it was like series of them or not, I'm not that part. I'm not sure. But yeah, we get the 21 books that go from the beginning with Uther Pendragon on all the way to the end with Arthur's death. The first book is the Rise of Arthur, which we get the classic Sword in the Stone narrative. Mm-hmm. Which before that though, we do get the king in Cornwall whose wife has Uther has decided he finds the wife quite attractive.
Yes, he wants her to be his wife.
So
little David and Bathsheba.
It is actually there are a number of these. It is David and Bathsheba, but also sort of like spun around where it's not a soldier that he sends off. He calls the king out to battle, kills himself in battle, and then has Merlin.
He's a bit more more forthcoming with it.
He is a little bit, and then
more hands-on.
Merlin changes shape.
No pun intended on any.
Merlin changes his shape to look like her husband, and then he goes into her. She has a baby, and she's like freaking out because she's like, "What happened? I saw my husband." It's like finds out it's Uther, and she's like, "Oh, thank God."
Oh, thank goodness.
This would have been so bad.
This would have been so awkward.
But then they later get married. So I don't know why all the shenanigans, because they did just eventually get married. But, either way. So that's a mess.
So here's one thing I find interesting. This obviously is kind of the beginning of the Arthurian stories as we know them now. It's hard to imagine anymore an Arthurian story that doesn't have Merlin in it.
Yes.
But after the Sword and the Stone, Merlin's not really in Morte.
Yeah, once I believe, and I may be misremembering, he does because he eventually goes off with the Lady of the Lake. I want to say he's there for a second when Sir Balin dies, to say that Lancelot, one of basically the best knight in the world, one of Lancelot or Galahad, just so you're aware, will get this sword.
Yeah, but like it's that little, and which is
I know, yeah.
Obviously, in all the stories, Merlin kind of comes in and out,
right?
But like, he's just practically non-existent. Which is very interesting.
Yes, he's there. He instructs Arthur, but he also is like. He engages in a whole bunch of mischief. His magic powers seem to be basically endless. He can kind of turn anyone into anything,
which is a real problem with this story. That
the
it doesn't
world
have
building,
the world building in this story, and the fact that it doesn't have a detailed, hard magic system.
What can Merlin do? What can he do?
What can he do?
There are
major
major plot holes here.
Huge, gaping plot holes.
But either way, we get after all that. there's the thing is, and we're gonna yada yada a whole bunch of this. This book is massive.
Let's be honest though, and let's be kind of fair to ourselves. The book kind of yada yadas a lot.
The book yada yada. This is what's crazy. The book yada yada.
Most of the yada yada sounds like this. And I walked to him and I said, "Sir, how do you walk to me?" And he said, "Sir, I walk to you this way." And I said, "Sir, how do we walk this way together?" And then he said, "Sir, we shall walk stride and stride together, sir." And I said, "Sir." that is how
there is a bit of it.
And
there.
he saw his friend was struck from his horse, so he struck down this other fellow from his horse, and he took the horse to his friend and said, "Here, friend, take this horse, for you need a horse, for this is a battle." His friend said, "Thank you, sir." And then his friend saw another friend that was unhorsed, and so he went to this other knight, and he unhorsed him, and he took that horse to his friend that had been unhorsed.
Yes.
Said, "Friend, you need a horse. Sit upon this horse."
I love it. And then with all the tiresome dialogue, they have this one line that said, "And Lancelot fought a dragon, and it was very difficult. But he overcame that dragon." And
That's
he did.
There's a lot of there's a lot.
Talk about the dragon.
But interestingly, is any of the action done in a modern way where you're giving like details and then he slashed and he parried and he ducked and there's none of that.
Lots of foining.
There's a lot of foining and there's a lot of buffets on the helm.
Yep.
and there's a lot of and he smote him
like
passing
spankings.
sore.
Well, and also some honestly, some kind of
really graphic violence.
Surprisingly graphic
and
violence.
there are Lancelot's battle with Gawain at the end of the book. And we'll be hopping around here a little bit, but Lancelot's battle with Gawain goes on for a long time. They fight for a long time. There's a fair amount of detail in that fight, and it pays a lot of attention to it. It's obviously a huge moment, after the affairs exploded the kingdom and everything's going to crap. But then you do get a lot of moments where he fought a dragon. It was hard, but he did win. And that's it. And it is on the one. What's funny though is as I was reading this, because it is crazy. It's all of 900 pages, but it's actually, that doesn't even belie how much is actually in the book, because while it yada yadas, it just detail after detail after detail. And it really is almost like a list of things that happened in places.
It's and I don't even. It's we're having fun. We're having some laughs. I don't mean to shit on it.
No, sure.
It is actually interesting to kind of see the evolution of storytelling.
Absolutely.
Because like we said last week, the Mabinogion is the oldest thing that we've talked about. Mm-hmm. This is the second oldest thing that we've talked about, and it's not, as far as this being written versus when the books that the Mabinogion was translated from, they're contemporaries.
Yes.
So it's just a vastly different storytelling style. Yeah. And also, as opposed to the Mabinogion, where some of the things I feel like with the Mabinogion are more engaging, mm-hmm. I think that's probably has more to do with the fact that most of those stories came from an oral tradition.
Sure.
Whereas Morte was written.
It was written,
and
yes.
So it's like an early written
and compiled. It went through a very different storytelling.
So
process.
it is a very early written story. Yeah. It's not an oral thing where you're having generations of different orators honing the story and crafting it. It's an early author writing a story.
One of the things I really like about the sparse detail, where we don't get a lot of, there is some, but you don't get a lot of people's thoughts. You don't get how people felt. You don't get granular detail on what was going on. You just get this happened. It happened in this way. I do think that leaves a lot of room for your imagination.
Sure.
Where also Lancelot ends up being a really complex character because he's also doing things that don't really make any sense together. But at the end of the day, it's one guy's doing this stuff. Yeah. One guy's, having an affair with the queen and running around doing that, while he's also known as the most noble and the goodliest and the knight who always stands up and does what's right. And it's he's actually a really, really complex character because he's doing both of those things.
Right.
And some of that, I think, is because Malory's kind of potentially somewhat smattering two views of one character into one work. I don't know. And that ends up informing this one view where, again, a more modern author then you're going to write that, there's going to be a lot of rationalizing, a lot of like blending these ideas. I don't want to say I would love to see more of this in modern writing, but I think it is interesting. There's even something that I think Gene Wolfe gets to where it's like, don't say it, leave room for you to think about it.
Yeah.
I think I do. That is one thing I would love to see, at least a little bit, is like leaving that room. You don't have to answer every question. You don't even have to answer every question of what happened in a scene. You can just kind of say and leave that space to imagine. I don't know.
Thank you for bringing up Gene Wolfe, because this is Under Towers. We cannot go a week without talking about Gene Wolfe.
Gene Wolfe. And the most direct thread line would be the Wizard Knight. Check out our Wizard Knight episodes with rereading Wolf.
They're great episodes. Read the book first, though.
Read the book first.
Great plug.
But,
Thank you.
Well, read it and then read it again.
So interesting. One thing we talked about this a little bit. The biblical parallel of Uther Pendragon. There are lots of biblical allusions in this. One interesting one is that Mordred eventually tries to marry Queen Guinevere when Arthur is off trying to fight his war with Lancelot at the end. So we get the sort of David and Absalom sleeping with the concubines. Again, I don't know how intentional that was. It's hard for me to imagine it wasn't. And then interestingly, we get King Arthur being Pharaoh and King Herod, where he finds out that the man who will destroy the kingdom was born on May Day from Merlin. And so Arthur's like, well, let's kill all the nobles' babies so that we can make sure that the kingdom is saved.
I wonder why that didn't make it into later versions of the story.
I don't know. Don't know.
It's weird. Of all the things that didn't get passed down.
We're weighing it up. Killing babies is rough.
Also didn't work.
Saving a kingdom is good, though. He does fail.
But like Sam said, it actually doesn't work. It never works.
No,
it never works.
It's interesting the way the book tells of this too, because it's like, and Mordred was saved, and it's interesting. It was like, he's the bad guy. So it is the bad guy sort of dastardly getting away as a baby.
It's like
it
was like he was the only one we needed to kill.
It
never works. Killing all the babies never works.
I know. It is like
it's almost like it's like pure evil.
Yeah, I know.
But it's more like we just have to kill one baby.
Yeah, I know. Well, and it's the whole killing baby Hitler thing.
We got to get the target
It's like you
right.
can't kill all the babies to kill baby Hitler.
No, that's extreme.
That's too much.
And he might escape, and then you just kill a bunch of babies.
Yep. It's tough. But that's also in this book. And it isn't funny though. They were like, the nobles really weren't happy about this, but they blamed Merlin.
Like, Arthur,
fair enough.
I am not cool with this, and I know it's that wizard that's been talking to you.
It's that freaking wizard.
I know
man.
it's not you, man. I know this isn't you. This is not who you are.
So some highlights from the book we get, and these were some things that I were not aware of, and I felt pretty familiar with the Arthur story. Arthur becomes king of all Europe.
Yeah,
battles
Emperor of Rome
with the emperor, which was awesome. I did not realize.
I didn't know that either.
He becomes like the Holy Empire.
Yeah,
he goes down and
pretty
defeats
rad.
Rome.
And they get all offended because they get told to pay homage, and they're like, "No, actually, we're gonna come kick your butt."
It's the Henry V scene, and I wonder if that was an inspiration at all. But
Maybe.
like the Dauphin sending the tennis balls to Henry V, and the whole reason that Henry invades France is, fuck me, fuck me, fuck you, And Arthur pulls the same thing. These dudes from Rome, like, you would pay us tribute, smelly English king.
Yeah, it is funny. They get back there. Rome's like that. That throne room though was like that was the most noble stuff I've ever seen in my life.
It was a dope throne room.
This was maybe a bad idea. Interestingly, too, also one of the lesser known stories, Sir Balin and Sir Balin, the brothers who end up fighting, which is also he's the Knight of the Two Swords. Although he doesn't use a second sword that often. He does have two swords.
Maybe he just thinks about it a lot.
I don't know.
Which is that perhaps a inspiration for Sir Arthur Dane in Game of Thrones?
Possibly, probably.
It can't not.
He's a great knight. He gets a whole book. He gets the whole second book is his book and his deeds, and then him giving the Dolorous Stroke to the Fisher King. So that's like one of the things that's interesting when you talk about its modern influences. That whole Fisher King stuff is seeded for then the Grail Quest, which is like the very literally 800 pages later, which is also I don't know. It's interesting, but then he fights his brother, and they both die, and then his sword is eventually saved later for the best knight in the world, which would be one of Lancelot or Galahad. It does end up being Galahad
because Lancelot can be the best, but isn't because
Yeah, Galahad is the best.
So from there, after the Balin story, you get really a bunch of different books and introductions, but it is really just, and I don't want to be dismissive at all because I did enjoy it, but it is just so much jousting. It is almost all jousting. Arthur does get captured and does a few heroic deeds fighting Sir Pellinor, setting 20 prisoners free. There's some cool
here's
stuff
the thing.
there.
I don't know that it's possible to have too much jousting.
It is,
but
it is really
this is
close.
damn close. If it is
It is
possible,
gross.
this is the line.
It is so much
There's
jousting.
so much jousting. It's
Especially once
hard to keep track of
in
how
the
much
like
jousting.
3 or 4 books of Sir Tristram.
That's all jousting.
It is just almost all
It's
jousting.
all jousting with sprinkles of story interrupting the jousting.
Basically, there's like Tristram and Iseud kind of bebopping around, King Mark being mad, Sir Palamedes doing a little bit of non-jousting, and then you get Sir Tristram being really sad and being like a wild beast for a bit.
Yeah, and then just the rest is
then
jousting.
and then the rest is jousting, and then who jousted the better, and then like Sir Palamedes gets a good look from Lady Iseud, so he's like super jazzed and he jousts real good.
Yeah.
Like that's just kind of what it's kind of a lot of what's happening.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff, again, it's good, it's interesting, it's skimmable. There are themes and details, but that's why like I do think an audiobook for this and just kind of like let it kind of like wash over you is like a great way to engage with it.
The theme mostly is King Mark sucks.
King Mark sucks.
He's a
big time.
douche.
Yeah, he's bad. But
I will say going into this, I was only familiar with the Tristram and Iseud story
This
via
is Tristan
the
and he's old though.
via
the modern
the
sensibility.
the James Franco movie.
oh my god.
That's the one that translates. Tristan and he's old with James Franco and some lady.
Yeah,
Probably Claire Danes. Who knows?
yeah. So
Wow.
this was better.
It took
I'm
it took
glad.
a hell of a lot longer, but it was better.
It was.
There was so much more jousting, but it was better.
You know, the James Franco movie. That was one of the things that was lacking.
Was
Seriously,
the
was
lack of jousting.
The lack of jousting.
No, it's good. They made up for it in the sequel, Why Him, with Bryan Cranston. They made up for it. It's actually really funny.
Was there enough jousting in that one?
A little, like, yeah. There was an appropriate amount of jousting.
And again, we're skipping over so much of this freaking huge book. But after the Tristan and Iseud, which is really, I think, the longest single
It's
part
like
of
a
this
third
book.
of the book.
It's
it
huge.
felt like.
Yeah,
Which I did not
read
expect.
like synopsises or anything of it,
Yeah.
they're like, and we're gonna talk about Tristan for a while. Like literally anything I've read, it's like it's mostly about King Arthur, but then we're just like Tristan is a guy, and he like is here, and King Mark, bad guy. He's not good.
Really bad.
Tristan, really good, and he like wants to be good for King Mark, and then you like get 20 minutes, and you're like, I'm still reading about freaking Tristan.
What's happening right now?
Yeah.
Here's
But,
an inconsistency with these two books that we've talked about in King Arthur is like I feel like King Arthur from Culhwch and Olwen, if that King Arthur, if Tristram had just approached him and been like, hey, I'm one of your best knights and I really love this woman, and King Mark is a raging asshole, can like we do something about it? I would be in line for this throne anyways. I feel like Mabinogian King Arthur would have been like, hell yeah, let's go get him.
Yeah.
Let's go get him.
Well, first he would say, let's wait 1 year.
Let's wait 1 year.
And
And if it doesn't get better,
And then when we do get him, let me tell you what you do. We'll find the center of his kingdom. We'll dig a hole there. I'll have a bag at the bottom. And then when he gets down there, he's starting to turn into a pig. We'll fill him up with meat.
We'll fill
He'll
it up
get
with
real tired.
We'll fill it up with
Put
hot
him-
water and let the most beautiful woman in the world bathe there.
Yes. And then the next day, a bunch of mice will just come all around everybody.
yeah, you can put him in the bag and
Yeah.
beat the shit out
And
of
there's a
him.
lot of things. And then we have to go get
Pop
the
them out like
fork
popcorn.
that's in this giant's beard. And it's impossible to get it.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Listen to our last episode on the Mabinogian if you don't understand what nonsense we're spewing at the moment.
I mean, the nonsense is more engaging than some of the jousting, I will say. If we're comparing
shorter
and
than the
contrasting the two.
It is. I will say from there though, I loved the next main part of the story after the Tristram
main
is
part,
the
right?
the quest of the Sand And I really,
Wait,
really,
whoa.
what am I skipping?
Lancelot.
Well, Lancelot,
We were just
oh
talking
no,
about
no,
this.
that's fair. The book,
Is it?
No, that's
that
my bad.
Lancelot, as you
No,
said,
no, that's my bad.
Is what?
most of Lancelot's story is post Grail, but his big quest and the birth of Galahad is pre Grail. That's just my bad.
And
Well,
his relationship
and
with
his
fighting the
his
dragon.
madness, his wild man era.
Isn't that post Grail?
That's Tristram happened to him too, right?
Oh no, you're right.
It's pre
My bad.
Grail.
I mean, and if we're looking at the Bible, that's some Nebuchadnezzar stuff.
Well, and going like into the future with Arthur retellings, one thing that's interesting is that's I don't recall that being a Lancelot thing, but it definitely is a Merlin thing.
Oh,
in multiple versions, as though the going
Becoming a wild
insane
man.
and
Well, both
living
Sir
as a
Tristram-
wild man in
this,
the woods.
both Sir Tristram
Yes.
and do that.
So
We've
it's
also
it's
skipped over a bunch of stuff with Lamorak and Gawain too. Just there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
King
stuff,
Pellinor.
stuff has to get.
There's a
skipped.
ton of stuff.
It's
Either
okay.
way,
I think some of my questions at the end might loop it back in.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's good. Real quick, we'll kind of bebop through this. The Lancelot story starts, and it is like Lancelot just kicked so much butt. He was the best. He basically never lost, except if someone tricked him, or there was wizardry involved. Other than that, he won. But he was a massive screw up with the ladies.
Yeah.
They loved him, but he messed it up. And pretty quickly, he's saving a lady. The dragon story we mentioned, he frees them from the dragon. And then he finds out a lady's in distress and not doing well. He rushes in. She's butt naked and super beautiful. And he's like, oh, my God, I got to help her. And he does.
Whoa, you're naked. You're naked and beautiful. I have to help you.
And then the her dad's like, we should definitely get you married with him. He's like, nope, I love Lady Guinevere. And so no. And it is sort of at this point mostly vague whether it's like they just have affection for each other or that's like his lady in the knightly sense. But it is definitely for sure that it is more than that later on. But at that point, this is Lady Elaine. They then trick Lancelot by, again, shape-shifting her into looking like Guinevere. He gives her a baby. She gives birth to Galahad, shows up at court. And there's a really funny moment where when she shows up, she's so beautiful and adored by everyone. Lancelot is like, what have I done? I guess it's like, but it's interesting because he's this character where like he like sort of wants to love Elaine, but will not turn back, even though he's having an affair with Guinevere.
Yeah, his loyalty
he will not
outweighs
turn back on his
it.
loyalty.
Yeah.
It's like corrupted loyalty. It's very, very interesting. But at that point, because Galahad is born, that is when Guinevere's like, "Get out of here! I don't want to have anything to do with you." That's when he becomes a wild man. And
I mean, and you see the modern reflection of that, obviously, and this is probably super lame, but the character of Jaime Lannister.
oh, I thought you were gonna say Kanye West.
And this is kind of like this is kind of like Donald Trump.
We
where
kind of
you
went
just-
crazy after Kim left him.
He was well on his way.
I'm trying to see if I can.
No,
connect to that.
Jamie Lannister is
Well,
a
what I mean,
yes.
that's
I
a
mean
good
the
comparison.
line that's in the show, and I think it translates from the books, where he's like, loyalty to one man is betrayal to another, and like, who are you loyal to at the end
Sure.
of the day? Your family or the political power in charge?
Well, and obviously then Lancelot is also sleeping with the king's wife, who also happens to be his sister.
yeah,
And
But if
then-
you-
and
in
he's
Game of
the-
Thrones,
and
his
he's the
sister.
best knight.
Yeah.
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
But if you like separate the two, like his loyalty to her, if it was objective and not put in the subject that it's in, then his loyalty to her is the most chivalrous.
I think
But because the
it's
other things
yeah.
undo it, it's just such a
It's
complex
complicated.
idea.
He's
complicated.
definitely a Lancelot character,
Right.
I think
for
so.
sure.
Like, yeah, Lancelot's the real one. He's a knockoff.
Yeah.
For sure.
But Jamie's a
then,
great character.
Very good. Very good.
So after he becomes a wild man, they do eventually find him and they bring him back. There's a lot of like Lancelot going away and then bringing him back and being sad. He saves a bunch of people. He fights a ton of knights. I think like 30 at one point.
Yeah.
He's
the greatest knight.
He's the greatest knight. He kicks butt. The interesting thing too is they beat it over the head that he's also the kindest and the most noble. It's not just that he's the most skilled and the greatest man of prowess. He is also the most kind and compassionate and caring.
Well, the only thing that Galahad has over him is the
Purity.
The purity.
Yeah, they're basically the same.
Yeah, there's like father, like son, except for that.
And as it's revealed, they're descended 8 generations from Jesus. What do you expect? What do we expect? He's gonna be awesome. Which that little throwaway line is like, what? They just like toss that in there.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, and as everyone knows,
That's another one of those dragon fighting lines. He fought a dragon. It was tough, but he won.
yep.
Yeah, Lancelot was great.
was hard.
And part of why he was great is because he's a direct descendant of Jesus. Anyways, moving on.
When it says
Wait,
assuming it's
wait.
one of Jesus's brothers. I don't know, but like
Hey,
it doesn't
well,
it doesn't really specify.
No, it's,
The story of Jesus and Mary Magdalene having a relationship is not a new story.
one,
Dan
yeah.
Brown did not invent
have you
that
seen
story.
the Da Vinci Code? Yeah.
I was gonna say,
What
he did
it
not.
is interesting to me if that's what he's pulling on. I mean, maybe not.
Could be that. I mean, that wouldn't have been a popular thing to do at the time.
That's what I would have thought. I don't know.
It's
But
not
yeah,
popular now. But
Maybe that's why it was such just a little teensy little throwaway thing.
teeny,
Possibly.
teeny thing.
That was just forget we said that. But from there, again, there's so many quests and different things that you could spend a lot of time on. But from there, we do get the story of the Grail. One of the things I thought was really interesting when you get into the Grail is is it a hermit or do they get a message? That's what I'm spacing. But either way, they get it in their heads.
Is it Merlin?
No, it's not Merlin.
It's not
at
Merlin.
this
I
point.
think it is a little hermit.
Merlin
but-
has made the siege perilous, which is the seat that the man who will attain the Grail can only sit in and survive. There is a bunch of that also, which I'm skipping ahead. There's a bunch of only the best knight can do this thing, which is interesting that there's like, wait, you're going to do this thing that's really hard and really special and whatever, but you have to do all these other things that actually don't progress you on it, but it's like they give you reassurance that you're going to actually be able to do this.
Well, it's like you have to. It's like it's a video game thing.
Yeah.
You have to do these quests before you have the
other
ability
quest.
to do
Yeah,
the other
yeah,
quests.
yeah.
You can't unlock that area until you've done these
That
things.
really is what it's like. And then if you do it, it means you will do the other one.
Yeah.
But when they decide to pursue the Grail, Arthur's really not happy about it. He's like, this is going to
All my
ruin
best knights are
everything. All of them
disappearing.
are
That actually felt like such a surreal moment in the entirety of the whole novel. Is like his realization that, and I think that kind of lends to the almost philosophical emphasis that the whole thing presents, is that in this pursuit of chivalry, we're all going to die. Like, I felt like that was such a weighty thing to happen there. Like his realization that this pursuit is almost hopeless, but noble at the same time. But sometimes noble and hopeless are the same thing.
Well,
because there's no real tangible value to attaining it other than you were just noble.
Yeah.
You know, you don't get a bunch of money at the end. You don't get a bunch of like kingdoms at the end. You mostly just did a good thing, and all of these knights die.
And there's a certain bravery and nobility in knowing that you're going to lose and fighting anyways.
That's what I mean. That's what I thought that was trying to capture right there. That sometimes a life well lived or lived with like the best, I guess, behavior and like action is more valuable than a life with tangible value or materialistic value.
It's Theoden's line. We will meet them in battle nonetheless.
Yeah. Die.
Chills.
It's chills.
It is interesting too, where we talk about this book being so much about chivalry, where the Grail quest is also like whatever. It sort of sets it up as this is beyond chivalry, though. It is like holy, purity, but also holy in this very specific way, where then they end up and most of the Grail quest it involves Gawain a bit. He quickly realizes he's not going to get anywhere.
That guy.
He's not that guy. He's not going to get anywhere. Interestingly, though, he seems to be better off for it.
Sure.
With the acceptance.
He's learned
some things.
He's learned about himself.
And then he goes back, though. Lancelot is involved a lot. Also, and this is sort of weaved in throughout, he also learns that he will not be able to attain it. But interestingly, is able to see a vision of the Grail. And is like purified of his, worldly deeds and wants and things, and
for the moment.
Wait, I was gonna say, is this the moment where he's he comes to Jesus and he's like, nah, screw it.
Well, no, and then it comes up later, but then it's interesting where he's like set on a new path and everything's like great, and then for his storyline, it says once the Grail is attained and they all come home, it's like, once he was back, he just kind of went back to doing everything. There's something very sad and real about that, though.
Just when I thought I was out, they pull me
It's
back
that sentiment.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, though, like, I found a real soft spot for Lancelot and
Me
thinking
too.
and wondering, like, is he really all that bad? But in the same breath, I have to think about Guinevere, and I'm like, I just don't get her. I don't get what is she just bored? Like,
So
was
she's
she
not-
into Arthur ever? Like, it
she's
seemed
not
like she
given enough
really
in
was.
this, in this story.
Well-
I think in future tellings when
No, we're just getting her actions right. I don't get her insight, and I really want to
Well,
know,
and that's
like,
the thing.
what
I-
is
I-
going on.
I actually
with
think
her.
we're left, like, Guinevere is left to our imagination.
I don't want to think she's
lot
like
of things
a
are left
horrible
to-
harlot, but at the
I
same
don't think
time,
so.
it's like with just the behavior on the page
Well,
and
and
Lancelot's
I-
suffering and all this, it's
Once
like,
in Future has an interesting kind of take on this whole thing, but one of the things I think is that I think Guinevere was probably a lot younger than Lancelot, you know? It's not ages is like not specified in this book at all. You have no idea how old anyone ever is. There's a lot of
Correct.
talk of like their sons will serve you, and then like the sons show up, and then it's like they just show up as adults.
right.
And
Well,
then-
I mean that's Galahad and
yeah.
Lancelot is like
Well, seriously, when I read this, I was like, I never realized that was his freaking son.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
well, it's like
yeah.
Lancelot. It seems to be like our age through
Yes.
this whole thing, and then all of a sudden this grown adult son
Yes.
shows up.
and then at the very end, he's like old all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's
It's interesting.
I mean, Lancelot's got to be like at least like 38 to have a son that's strong enough to be his kind of equal.
I mean, you can imagine. I mean, he probably did have.
if he had it when he was like
probably
18.
young. I mean, it's probably is 18, and then but then I do think it's. I want to say is Galahad like 16?
But there's
He's gotta be
Galahad is
16,
also
17.
15, 16, 17, somewhere in
Yeah.
that mid to late teens.
Where Galahad could be our age.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
So it's
But still,
but it's never. You're right. It's absolutely never specified.
and it's very
Time is not really specified
no
that
how
much.
long things take, when they happened. It's all just a smush of stuff.
And
But
it's again that's kind of reflective of the storytelling of the time.
But I did think the mythic quest for the Grail was interesting, mostly focusing then on Bors, Percival, and Galahad. There's a lot of interesting things. They get a shield with Sir Joseph of Arimathea's blood on it and a red cross, white shield with blood on it, which is fun.
I mean, that sounds dope. I'd like to
sounds
have
super
one
cool.
of those. Yeah.
They get another magic sword. He gets another magic sword with snake skin on one side, and on the other side it's painted red, and it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah, that's
or the
pretty
tree
sick.
of life.
That's
Excuse
pretty-
me.
it's pretty
Tree of life.
sick.
That's super sick.
That's pretty sick.
Super
Very
sick.
very impractical as a sword though. To have
Wildly
a snake
impractical.
Skin,
Yeah,
like,
that's gonna peel off
this
immediately.
this side, I don't
mean,
I
if
don't
it's
use this
the
side.
serpent skin though. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe
gonna
it's-
stay
maybe
oiled
it's
up.
sharp. Yeah.
Sharp, yeah. But then eventually they Galahad becomes king of the little magical town somehow. And then
Just makes me
interestingly
think
though,
of-
he does attain that. Oh, sorry, you're good. You're good.
It makes me think of Frozen as a stupid. the king of the magical town, like one of the like little gnomes.
Can tell we
Yeah.
have young
You know what I
children.
mean,
I know
yeah.
exactly what you mean.
I was like, is he like out there with Atahala, like
Is-
like talking to the fire?
Kristoff, if he
spirits?
hadn't met Anna and
Yeah.
becomes ruler
Yeah.
of the trolls.
It's amazing.
So he's a bit of a fixer-upper,
God.
you know what I mean? Like,
Oh my god. But then from there, Galahad attains the Grail. The other two see it. Bors goes back. Percival becomes a hermit. Galahad dies.
I found it really interesting. Sorry, not to break in here with Galahad dies. I find it interesting. In a lot of the other versions of this story that I've read, Bors is kind of presented as this almost like kind of Porthos type character, where he's like very loud and
Yeah,
bombastic and
Sure.
drinks a lot, parties hard, fights hard. And so I found it interesting seeing this version of him where he's one of the guys that actually achieves the Grail.
Yeah.
Which kind of runs counter to that other version of the character.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know if that's
I think-
people subverting the
I think
the
it is.
type.
I think it is
probably
that because everybody loves a good Boris, bro. Like that's what made Bronn in Game of Thrones so fun. Like he is
Yeah.
that guy, the guy that's kick ass and likes to drink and just whore his way through everything.
Yeah.
Like
You
you need that
interesting
almost comic relief sort of.
either subversion or evolution of the character.
Yeah,
is
either one.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Porthos is fun. I want to watch Three Musketeers again.
Hell yeah, dude.
with Chris O'Donnell.
Is there any other version?
There
That's
isn't.
not true. There is. There's a great one from the 70s, I believe. But
Do you like Man in the Iron Mask?
hell yeah, dude.
I love it.
It's good. They're
yeah.
all really bad, but I really like them.
Oh man, they're good.
They're phenomenal. What are you
Chris
talking about?
O'Donnell is not good.
So who cares?
Dark-
Kiefer Sutherland
My
as
name is
Athos.
My name is D'Artagnan. It says
Movie
that.
is so good.
That
Like,
movie's great. though.
Honestly, on a
And
scale,
then
like he should be on scale with
Sting.
Hayden Christensen as Anakin.
I did
Like,
not remember Sting's in that movie.
Well, he's not in the movie, but they do this. They have
Oh,
the
he's the
song. You know, it's
soundtrack.
it's a '90s Disney movie. So there's a
Italian
pop
pop
star
star.
song at the end, and
Oh my
it's Sting.
God.
It's Brian.
okay, I really want to watch the Three Musketeers with Chris O'Donnell and whoever plays the Red Cardinal.
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry.
Tim
Yeah.
freaking Curry.
It's a great
that guy.
movie.
Yeah,
It's so
it's
good.
A phenomenal
Great movie.
movie.
And
It's
who's,
so good. I watched that movie we rented it over and over and over again.
Yeah,
and
I
then
watched it on
my
repeat.
parents pulled one of those Christmas pranks where they like get a small present and wrap it in a huge box.
No, okay.
So it was
yeah,
a huge
classic.
box, but it had the VHS of the Three Musketeers in it, and
Amazing.
I was over the moon. I was so excited to have my own copy
Dude,
of that movie.
all for one, one for all.
Hell yeah,
Oh,
dude. Hell yeah.
That's great.
Chills, bro.
It's great stuff.
chills. We should do
More swords
we should
than muskets,
We should
though,
read
so
that.
we should rename that.
Yeah. But does it have as much muskets as jousting?
That's true.
To bring it back to what we're actually talking about.
No, you're good.
Charlie Sheen.
Charlie.
He is in that, and he sleeps around so much.
Hijacked.
Charlie
We've been hijacked.
Charlie Sheen, you
amazing.
did it again.
Charlie Sheen is in that movie. That is correct.
All right, back
Can
to
you name another?
back to Arthur. More to Arthur.
Oh no, you're all good.
The bad
From
guy.
there.
The bad guy is
Here,
so
hold on
good
though.
in
Here,
Three
hold on
Musketeers.
though. Here's an actual fun.
There he
tangent.
goes. There he goes.
Here's a
There he
fun
goes, here
fun
he goes.
tangent. Cast of the Chris O'Donnell Three Musketeers.
Yes, yeah.
We're making a King Arthur story.
Okay.
Who are we
I
casting?
keep thinking you guys
is
are saying
kinda-
Chris O'Dowd.
This is kind of stealing my questions for
Very
later.
different type of movie.
This is stealing my question for later, which we should circle back into.
Okay.
But no, the fun. So just real quick,
Who
Okay.
is
Chris
the
O'Donnell.
bad? Who's the bad guy in this movie? He's so bad and
It's,
so great at being bad.
oh, he's got the best bad guy
And
voice.
yeah, I know. Like,
We're looking this up in real time.
like it sounds like that.
What? This is Musketeers?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, the bad guy in Three Musketeers is the best.
gravelly voice.
He's as good as what's his name is in The Patriot. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah, hell yeah, dude.
What is his freaking name?
Michael Wincott.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, he's
One of the greatest bad guys of all time.
Oh my god.
Yeah, he's great.
His
Okay.
fight with D'Artagnan.
Let's start. We're going off the top cast
He
from
says
IMDb.
it like that. He says, "My name is D'Artagnan." Like, why are we talking this
Okay.
way?
Okay. Chris O'Donnell. Who is Chris O'Donnell in The Morte Arthur?
I feel like
Oh.
he's Galahad. Honestly, I've never.
Oh.
I have never liked Galahad. I always thought Galahad was a little bitch.
I actually.
the
had a
fact
similar
that he
feeling. I like him
wins, I'm
now,
like,
though.
screw you.
I'm
man.
gonna
like
I'm gonna
Percival
present.
better.
I'm gonna
Okay.
present an alternative. Tristram.
I was gonna say Tristram.
So Chris O'Donnell as Sir
Okay,
Tristram.
okay. My thing with that is James Franco has already given him such a bad name. Like, why do we have to shit on the characters that much
Hey, come
more?
on. It's Chris O'Donnell. Come on.
That's fine. Chris O'Donnell's fine.
Charlie.
He's in
Charlie
the Batman
Sheen.
movie.
Charlie.
Who's Charlie Sheen?
He's Merlin, bro.
Got that tiger blood.
Yeah.
No,
No,
honestly,
he's
no,
Mark. He's King Mark.
No. I think
You want to circle back? You've got two options. Which one is
I
it,
know.
dude? Flip
I
a
know.
There's so
coin.
many characters.
No,
is part
but-
of the problem.
I think that Charlie Sheen or Kiefer Sutherland. Who is Lancelot?
Kiefer.
For Lancelot?
Kiefer.
Yeah, definitely keep. I mean, I don't like those options though. That's like
But
the election
Charlie
of
Sheen as
2020.
Aramis with like the brooding romantic guy with the weird accent that
I just
isn't really
can't-
anything.
I can't. No, Charlie Sheen's got to be somebody's.
Sheen is Gawain.
Sheen is going. I don't hate that.
I could see that, or Boars even. Yeah,
I think Kiefer Sutherland is Lancelot.
Yeah.
the old one. Yeah,
Tim Curry, I think, is King Mark or Merlin.
or
Yeah, maybe both.
absolutely Merlin. Merlin can shapeshift, so he could be both.
And then Oliver Platt, who is Porthos. We just give him
King
Boars.
Mark. King Mark.
King Mark.
King Mark. Sure. I mean, that's a throwaway, but yeah. Who else is in that
He'd be a great
movie?
King Mark.
Mike. Well, we didn't cast Michael Wincott.
Okay.
Mordred.
Yeah,
Doesn't
actually,
really make any sense.
he's a bit young, but honestly, I would put him as King Arthur.
He'd be King Arthur.
In like a
Yeah.
good way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways,
That was
greatest
fun.
tangent that we've
Yeah.
ever gone on.
No, I seriously want to watch that. I want to watch that immediately.
So after the Grail quest is over, they attend the Grail. Galahad's dead.
Just make it
Pretty awesome. Pretty cool.
for one.
It's really interesting. I've read other stuff where it seems like Galahad sort of ascends,
Yes,
but which
same,
he sort
same.
of does, but it's actually pretty explicit. Like, nope, his body like wither away and dies.
Yeah.
It was actually, it added like a dark sort of, it wasn't twisted, but it was like there are consequences to doing this.
But there, for the time period, though, I believe that is just
typical,
the idea of dying and going straight to heaven is
like that's like the best
that's
thing.
pretty much
It
an
is.
ascension.
It is.
Bypassing any sort of purgatory for any amount of time is at the
That's a
time
big
that's
deal.
a pretty.
It's a big
It's pretty much the
even
same
in the
as an
whole
ascension.
whole biblical narrative, like to be like Enoch or one of those.
Well, but the
dudes
thing is,
like,
Enoch
Yeah.
How can you-
Enoch and Elijah are carried up in the body, though. It's very specific. It's like, but that's not an option.
Well,
in medieval,
Enoch gets taken by aliens.
Right.
That's first of all.
which we don't have to get into that right now.
all I'm saying is the immediate transition of this existence
Sure.
into the next one is the highest. It
Well,
would
yeah,
be the Holy
what I was
Grail.
gonna say though is like medieval cosmology and religion at the time was very much like dualism, like the spirit world and the physical world are like divorced, and the physical world is bad. Like,
No,
actually
I'm
bad.
not disagreeing. I'm saying
Yeah.
that it seems like a natural evolution because there was iconoclature that was huge during that time too.
yeah, of
Like, I
course.
mean, they
Yeah.
like celebrated people's like freaking teeth and like rags that some guy
Yeah,
shit
yeah.
on that was
Yeah.
a saint. You know,
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
is Cuthbert's teeth.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
No, for sure. So from there, we spiral out. Lancelot comes back. Bors goes back. And Lancelot just goes back to his old ways. The next, almost all of the book from here on out is focused on Lancelot. And then
The
it
affair.
and then it spirals out. So then from there, we get a lot of more details of Lancelot and Guinevere. He saves her several times. We kind of get the Knight of the Cart story. She's captured. He saves her. There's the moment where this all like really spirals out of control in the story. You may or may not be familiar with this. There's a new Elaine. Lancelot is off and away, decides he's going to wear this new Elaine's favor to joust an attorney in disguise. Because I guess Lancelot, being as good as he is, people will not joust against him because they. So he has to joust a lot in disguise. So he does that.
And it's a disguise specifically because he's
never worn a lady's
favor.
favor.
So he's
never
not
worn a
actually
lady's
taking
favor.
her favor because
No.
he cares about her
Yes.
so much as because it is a disguise
And
for him.
he leaves his shield at their house, takes on a new shield. So he's wearing new arms. He's wearing a favor. He jousts. He does well. People are even like, that seems a lot like Sir Lancelot. That guy's doing so well. But it's clearly not. He's got a lady's favor on his arm.
and a
What did you
different
say?
shield.
What did you say? No, it's not I, Lance. I mean, me.
Me? Hmm?
There's a lot of that in this book that we've skipped over. A lot of dudes fighting and being like, but you're my brother. Or, but I love you. Why didn't we talk before? But honor would not allow me to talk with you.
And I didn't know at all that it was you.
It's like, oh, and I've killed you, and I've taken your helmet off. Oh, no!
And then throw in a lot of sir.
And then a lot of,
Sir.
Jesu.
Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. They actually did say Jesus
Yeah.
Christ a lot.
I don't know if it is mostly just Jesu, I think. But
Yeah, I
but
don't
still,
remember
it's
a lot of
Arthur.
Christ
Like
in there,
it's
but
like
Jesu.
and Sir Palamedes smote down Sir Tristram, and Arthur said, "Jesu,
Jesu. Huh.
oh, that was amazing."
The equivalent of like, oh
Crazy.
shit.
Basically,
Jesu.
Whoa. Yeah. But so he's wearing that. Galahad finds where he's staying, sees Lancelot's shield, realizes what's going on, realizes he's wearing the lady's favor. They're like, wow, he's never worn a lady's favor before. This is a pretty big deal. Bebop's back tells him. Guinevere finds out. She's pissed. Pissed.
This is the only time
Because-
we see like inside. of what
we do
how
a
she
little
feels.
bit more, yeah. But also the new Elaine, has written a letter saying she's madly in love with Lancelot. So I will say, I'm going to defend Guinevere here just a smidge. She ends up being very mad at Lancelot and sending him away. But the details she's presented is a love letter to Lancelot, Lancelot wearing her favor, Lancelot living with her, and all of this being kept secret. Like if that happened again, now they're having an affair, but if my wife found out those details about me, she would be
questions.
like, there would be like, what the heck is going on? Like
Yeah.
there would, it would not, and it would be very understandable if you put it in a modern lens. Living with her, she's writing me letters, I'm wearing her stuff. It's not a great look, because I found myself getting mad until I was like thinking about it. Obviously, Lancelot tries to explain it, but but also I will say this explanation is kind of like, if he was sleeping with her, it's what you'd say. It's what you'd say. Oh no, babe, it was just so I could hide.
I promise it's nothing. It's just a facade.
So I'm just saying, like, in her defense, it's like, oh, women are so angry. It's like, no, actually, he's kind of sus.
Yeah.
He's kind of sus.
But it
doesn't make any sense.
I like agree with you too. It's just like the whole,
It is.
especially the fact that, and this is siding with Guinevere too, the fact that she couldn't really actually be upset about it. Like she probably wasn't like allowed, like, you know what I mean?
She wasn't really allowed because it's an affair,
which makes her more upset.
Absolutely,
because it's their little secret, and now it's like, but now all the emotions are under the surface.
Their little secret that everyone knows about,
knows.
except for Arthur.
But
I think it's actually.
But that's what contributes to the explosive behavior.
Arthur does know in sort of, I guess he's being cucked or whatever. But
he knows.
He's sort of just allowing it to.
It's when he knows that it's become public knowledge.
Once
and
it's
everyone
public,
knows that he knows. That's when it becomes bad. Which Mordred orchestrates and does the whole thing.
Well, for sure, and that's really the next big part of the story is
Guinevere
and Lancelot do make up. He comes back, and then Agravain and Mordred concoct a scheme to catch Lancelot in the room. There's a whole series. He ends up defeating 12 knights. They catch him in the room. He has to defeat. Then they're like, well, we've got to burn Guinevere. That's what you do when you find out the queen is having an affair. You burn her.
She's got to die. By
but
fire.
Lancelot then saves her, whisks her away
to his castle, right?
To his castle. He goes off to France.
Which I didn't realize he had a castle until Guinevere was like safe.
Yeah, he doesn't go there very often, but yeah, then he does that. So then, Guinevere does end up being sent back to England because Mordred tries to abscond with her, but then from there there's a war, and Gawain. Well, and the big thing from there is Lancelot kills Sir Gareth and Agravain, not realizing who they were.
Yeah,
who are Gawain's brothers. So Gawain now can't forgive Lancelot. It explodes. Everything just breaks down. There's a war. There's a really long duel with Gawain and Lancelot, which is it is one of the more evocative and beautiful moments because it's interesting too, where it says Gawain was really strong in the morning before noon, but then he would wane throughout the day, and then Lancelot would eventually beat him, and Gawain demanded that he be killed, but Lancelot wouldn't do it. It's one of those moments where I felt reading at the end of this, like it was really emotionally painful just to deal with like the reality of like the kingdom and these people's lives are all being torn apart, and it sort of doesn't have to be, but it's also like sort of unavoidable. It's really, really well done, and it's really tragic. And from there, while Arthur's away fighting this war, Mordred ascends the throne because of, I guess, some things Arthur's done. Even though there's been peace, a lot of the nobles are sick of Arthur, side with Mordred pretty quickly. And then he comes back. There's some fighting. And if there's anything I'm skipping over here, let me know. But like that we want to talk about. Arthur sees Mordred and realizes like this is a moment, which also it's really tragic that like your son is like the one you're having to kill, but he rushes and basically they kill each other in one final blow. Arthur kills him right away. Arthur lives for a time. At that point, they send Excalibur back into the lake.
He sees the lady catch it.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
Here's a fun fact for you guys that I've been saving for this discussion.
Oh, wow.
When my wife and I went on our honeymoon, the first half we spent in Cornwall,
Yeah.
And she very graciously went along with me to every single King Arthur site that I could find. One of which we went to this. It was a literal double wide King Arthur museum. It had some cool
Amazing.
artifacts from
The purest
Excalibur, the movie.
Yeah.
But then it was in this this field that you could do a walking tour of. There was a cool little excavation that was going on of some Dark Age ruins. It was pretty cool. But further back was there was a plaque there that this field was supposedly the battlefield where Arthur and Mordred fought
Wow.
and
Wow.
killed each other.
Wow.
Amazing.
Amazing.
So it's pretty cool.
It is
That's
very
pretty
cool.
epic.
Yeah.
So then from there, the book kind of winds down. There's a little refrain about some people saying Arthur didn't die. And then there's all this stuff where Lancelot and Guinevere have one moment. She says, you can marry someone else. She says, I'm going to go be a nun. He says, there's no way I could do that. And he becomes not a priest, but a hermit of some
Like
kind.
a monk
Goes off.
hermit type thing.
Yep. He's given a dream that she's going to pass. He then goes to not really to try to see her again, but he goes to where she's staying. She dies the day before he gets there. And then he makes sure, which honestly, I'm like getting a little emotional thinking about it, but he makes sure she's buried next to Arthur. And it's actually like, after you've read like 900 pages of this book and the destruction of a kingdom, there's something really sweet. One, to make sure Arthur's wife is buried next to him. And then two, to make sure people don't remove Guinevere from her like rightful place. And
Yeah.
and then from there he like wastes away and dies pretty soon after. And from there you get a little coda. So before we do Sam's questions and kind of dive back in, should I do my reading now?
Yeah, go for it.
Feels
Okay.
appropriate.
So there's a wonderful moment before we're in this is the end of the end of book 18. It is the very last chapter. It is chapter 25. I'm going to read the whole thing because it's not very long. Chapter 25, How True Love is Likened to Summer. And thus it passed from Candlemas until Easter that the month of May was come, when every lusty heart beginneth to blossom and to bring forth fruit. For like as herbs and trees bring forth fruit and flourish in May, and likewise every lusty heart that is in this manner a lover springeth and flourisheth in lusty deeds. For it giveth unto all lovers courage, that lusty month of May, in something to constrain him to some manner of thing more in that month than any other month, for diverse causes. For then all herbs and trees renew a man and woman, and likewise lovers call again to their mind old gentleness and old service, and many kind deeds that were forgotten by negligence. For like as winter erasure doth alway erase and deface green summer, so fareth it by unstable love in man and woman. For in many persons there is no stability. For we see all day for a little blast of winter's razor, anon we shall deface and lay apart true love for little or not, that cost of much thing. This is no wisdom nor stability, but it is feebleness of nature, and great disworship whomsoever useth this. Therefore, like as May month flowereth and flourisheth in many gardens, so in likewise every man of worship flourish in his heart in this world, first unto God, next unto the joy of them that he promiseth his faith unto. For there was never worshipful man nor worshipful woman, but they loved one better than another. And worship in arms may never be foiled, but first reserve the honor to God, and secondly the quarrel must come of thy lady. And such love I call virtuous love. But nowadays men cannot love 7 night, but they must have all their desires. That love may not endure by reason, for where they be soon accorded and hasty heat soon it cooleth. Right so fareth love nowadays. Soon hot, soon cold, there is no stability. But the old love was not so. Men and women could love long together 7 years, and no liquor's lusts were between them. And then was love truth and faithfulness. And lo, and likewise was used love in King Arthur's days. Wherefore I liken love nowadays unto summer and winter. For like as the one is hot and the other cold, so fareth love nowadays. Therefore all ye that be lovers, call unto your remembrance the month of May, like as did Queen Guinevere, for whom I make here a little mention, that while she lived she was a true lover, and therefore she had a good end. Explicit liber arctectodemisis. And here follows Liber 19.
Some made up words at the end there.
It's beautiful.
Wasn't that great?
It's great.
It was pretty. Yeah.
It's actually really lovely because I remember listening to it and I was like, wait, what's happening right now? Like, it's like this weird
I feel
aside.
moved.
Yeah.
No, it's actually
written.
really beautiful.
It's beautifully written.
Yeah.
Truly.
It's also some of the thing is silly when he's like, it's good stuff though. It's good.
I like
it. It's good stuff.
I love it.
I like it.
Okay, Sam.
Okay.
Get us.
So I have a guest appearance from ChatGPT
Oh.
tonight
Oh.
for questions.
Oh.
My prompt was, give me some funny questions for Morte to Arthur. And then
Okay.
it gave me some, and then I said, make them more sexual.
Oh no.
And so these are the ones I had.
Okay.
Some of these are very bad. You can just pick to skip or not. I've got like
Okay.
a bunch here, so
Okay.
I'll fire the ones that I think sound
Rapid fire.
kind
This is
of
a
fun.
rapid fire.
This one's less sexual, but who would win in a reality TV show? Lancelot on The Bachelor or Gawain on Survivor?
Oh my
Oh,
god.
Lancelot. That's not as easy as I thought it was going to
That's
be.
tricky. And you
I
gotta-
think
you gotta
actually
say at
Gawain
least
might win.
why.
Gawain.
Wait.
why?
Gawain.
Gawain.
Lan-
wait,
Lancelot-
piss people off.
Lancelot on The Bachelor or Gawain on Survivor?
Wait.
That's
wait.
actually a very
Wait,
astute
wait,
question,
wait.
ChatGPT.
No, I'm saying Lancelot on The Bachelor. Wait, he loses because all the women not Guinevere want to be with him. Because is he on The Bachelorette? Actually, is that what we mean here?
The Bachelorette, yes. The one where they pick the
Does
guy.
Lancelot win when he has to pick one of 15 women?
Well, do the opposite.
Well, actually, that's the hilarious
actually- it
version
is,
of the
it
show
is actually.
where he has to pick through 50. Is Guinevere one of? Nope.
And then 4 of them are named Elaine.
Yeah,
I'll go with my original. It's Lancelot, and
Yeah.
we, the audience, win.
I will say Gawain, but we win either way.
All right, Gawain wins on Survivor. Very good. I guess right answer. I don't know.
Okay.
Here we go. Merlin's got some wild magic. If he were alive today, do you think he'd have his own YouTube channel, or would he be selling weird gadgets on late night infomercials?
YouTube channel.
Neither.
Okay.
I guess it would count as a YouTube channel. Yeah, he'd be an Alex Jones
Okay.
Alex
You think
Jones
so?
type figure.
I'll bet
This
YouTube
version of
demonetized and then on his own platform.
yes. So yes and no.
Okay.
Oh my god.
If Gwen, wait, no, I think I like. Okay.
I mean, just fire away too.
If Lancelot and Guinevere had Tinder, what would their bios say? And who's swiping right first?
Okay.
Any dating app. Tinder seems, know, pretty.
So one of her,
if they both had a Tinder, what would their bios say? And who's swiping right first?
I can see the Tinder bio thing, but I'm not interacting enough. I don't have it in my head enough, but I feel like Guinevere is like in something stable, but always looking, poly-friendly. Like, that's what it's like. Down to have some fun. And then that's like what they're. Lancelot's would just be like pictures of him jousting, pictures of him.
And like the bio is
Pictures of him
doing
that-
cool shit.
Basically, yeah. Love being with don't actually want to talk to anyone on here.
Yeah. Or I hate this app. I hate this app.
I don't know who's. I think they're swiping at the same time.
But for each other,
It's
they're
faded.
swiping at
It's
the
like
same
swipe.
time.
It's faded. They
Is it
swipe
swipe
the exact
right
same
or
time.
swipe-
So hard.
If Arthur's Court had a noble OnlyFans, who'd be the first to cash in
God.
on those sexy jousting pics? Bonus, what's their signature content?
Oh my god!
Thank you, ChatGPT, for sexual innuendos.
It's not even a fucking innuendo anymore.
On funny questions. All right. If
Okay.
the whole court had a noble OnlyFans, who'd be the first to cash in on those sexy jousting pics? Bonus, what's their signature content?
I feel like it's Sir Palamedes.
Okay, why?
Because he's so, he's got a lust for life. And he's not, we don't know he's a Saracen. We don't know what religion he has, but at the time of the novel or the time of most of the writing, he's not been christened. So he's a free man.
I'm gonna take it in a different direction.
Okay,
I'm gonna
okay.
bring up one of my favorite
we'll
characters.
Circle back to you. Think about what is his signature content. Okay, no, we'll circle back.
It is.
Wait, it is.
I was gonna say one of my favorite characters that we haven't discussed is Lacote Maltail.
Oh yes,
there you go.
Which is already kind of kind of a porno name.
He does.
It's built in.
The ugly coat.
Built in.
Oh my god.
And jousting. Like Daniel said.
That's what I was about to say. It's jousting.
Take that however you want.
That's their only thing. Okay, well take it with a
all right, last chat GPT question.
Okay. There's a couple.
Oh no.
Trying to pick the right one.
This is terrifying.
Which knight is definitely into weird medieval kinks, but trying way too hard to keep it a secret from the rest of the round table? Or, if Guinevere had to choose between Arthur and Lancelot based on their bedroom skills alone, who's getting dumped, and what's her excuse? I feel like that question answers itself.
That one's fairly obvious in this version for sure.
Arthur's definitely getting dumped.
Kinkiest knight?
Kinkiest knight is probably Gawain.
For sure, Gawain.
I think it's Gawain.
Yeah, for sure, Gawain.
The one who's up to nonsense is Gawain.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
That's it for my questions.
Oh my god.
That might have to be a recurring segment.
That's incredible.
What ChatGPT
wants
to ask, but make it sexual.
So that's been Morte Arthur. We're going to end tonight's episode with one final reading, this time from The Idylls of the King by Alfred Lord Tennyson, which is a poetic retelling of Morte Arthur that we've been reading alongside Malory's work. This has been phenomenal discussion. Thank you, Daniel, for all the info about the behind the scenes of this story.
Absolutely.
Thank you all for listening. And if you enjoyed tonight's episode, please give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave us a comment. And we enjoyed having you with us, and we'll see you on the next episode. And this is a reading from the end of The Idylls of the King. Then saw they how there hove a dusky barge, dark as a funeral scarf from stem to stern. Beneath them, and descending, they were ware that all the decks were dense with stately forms, black-stoled, black-hooded like a dream, by these 3 queens with crowns of gold, and from them rose a cry that shivered to the tingling stars, and, as it were one voice, an agony of lamentation, like a wind that shrills all night in a wasteland, where no one comes or hath come since the making of the world. Then murmured Arthur, "Place me in the barge." So to the barge they came. There those 3 queens put forth their hands and took the king and wept. But she that rose the tallest of them all and fairest laid his head upon her lap and loosened the shattered casque and chafed his hands and called him by his name, complaining loud and dropping bitter tears against a brow striped with dark blood. For all his face was white and colorless, and like the withered moon, smote by the fresh beam of the springing east, and all his greaves and cuisses dashed with drops of onset, and the light and lustrous curls that made his forehead like a rising sun high from the dais throne were parched with dust, or clotted into points and hanging loose, mixed with the nightly growth that fringed his lips. So like a shattered column lay the king. Not like that Arthur who, with lance in rest, from spur to plume a star of tournament shot through the lists at Camelot, and charged before the eyes of ladies and of kings. Then loudly cried the bold Sir Bedivere, "Ah, my lord Arthur, whither shall I go? Where shall I hide my forehead and my eyes? For now I see the true old times are dead, when every morning brought a noble chance, and every chance brought out a noble knight. Such times have not been since the light that led the holy elders with the gift of myrrh. But now the whole round table is dissolved, which was an image of the mighty world, and I, the last, go forth companionless, and the days darken round me, and the years among new men, strange faces, other minds." And slowly answered Arthur from the barge, "The old order changeth, yielding place to new, and God fulfills himself in many ways, lest one good custom should corrupt the world. Comfort thyself. What comfort is in me? I have lived my life, and that which I have done may he within himself make pure. But thou, if thou shouldst never see my face again, pray for my soul. More things are wrought by prayer than this world dreams of. Wherefore let thy voice rise like a fountain for me night and day. For what are men better than sheep or goats that nourish a blind life within the brain, if knowing God they lift not hands of prayer, both for themselves and those who call them friend? For so the whole round earth is every way bound by gold chains about the feet of God. But now farewell. I am going a long way with these thou seest, if indeed I go, for all my mind is clouded with a doubt, to the island valley of Avilion, where falls not hail or rain or any snow, nor ever wind blows loudly, but it lies, deep meadowed, happy, fair with orchard lawns and bowery hollows crowned with summer sea, where I will heal me of my grievous wound." So said he, and the barge with oar and sail moved from the brink like some full-breasted swan that, fluting a wild carol ere her death, ruffles her pure cold plume and takes the flood with swarthy webs. Long stood Sir Bedivere, revolving many memories, till the hull looked one black dot against the verge of dawn, and on the mere the wailing died away. But when that moan had passed forevermore, the stillness of that dead world's winter dawn amazed him, and he groaned, "The king is gone." And therewithal came on him the weird rhyme, "From the great deep to the great deep he goes." Whereat he slowly turned and slowly clomb the last hard footsteps of that iron crag, thence marked the black hull moving yet, and cried, "He passes to be king among the dead, and after healing of his grievous wound he comes again. But if he comes no more, oh me, be yon dark queens in yon black boat, who shrieked and wailed, the three whereat we gazed on that high day, when clothed with living light they stood before his throne in silence, friends of Arthur who should help him at his need." Then from the dawn it seemed there came but faint, as from beyond the limit of the world, like the last echo born of a great cry, sounds as if some fair city were one voice around a king returning from his wars. Thereat once more he moved about and clomb even to the highest he could climb, and saw, straining his eyes beneath an arch of hand, or thought he saw, the speck that bare the king down that long water opening on the deep, somewhere far off, pass on, and go from less to less, and vanish into light. And the new sun rose, bringing the new year. Good morning.